Welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. This is Nick Wright. It was a holiday week. We had 2 Mondays this week. We made through both of them. It is Friday. A lot going on today. Coming in hot, lot of energy. How you doing, CC?
Good. You guys look nice.
Thank you very much. You as well. I like that tie. I don't know. It's like a knit situation. Looks very good. This is one of the biggest days.
More like Tom Ford, but
Tom Ford. No, but it's that's the designer. I was talking about more of the way it was made. But this is one of the biggest days in this network's young history, with 2 amazing World Cup games. Like, we've had some amazing baseball playoff games on this network, some great football games, of course, but 2 World Cup games coming up after this show right here on FS1. It's awesome.
All right, so no flopping, no flailing all over the place.
Can't be
no
Neymar.
Faking it. No, I can't hit you in your back and then your eye fall out. Oh.
You can't tell me I got a stat wrong and I fall off the chair.
Right, none of it. None of it.
All
Absolutely.
Right. We're all going to be good.
But what if those things happen?
Okay, well, it's probably going to happen.
Oh, then I can fake it.
You cannot pull it. We have an anti-Neymar policy is what's happening.
Unbelievable.
All right, we're going to get to soccer, but let's start with the NBA. While the NBA world waits to see what's going on and what's going to happen with Kawhi Leonard, LeBron continues his European vacation. He's got a new team in a new city with new teammates, and for the first time since 2010, he isn't being paired with 1 or 2 perennial All-Stars. And according to reports, it's all good. LeBron reportedly isn't pressuring the Lakers to acquire a second star now. No word on later. Now or later. Good candy. CC, would the Lakers be making a mistake not acquiring another star this offseason?
No, I think they'd be making a mistake if, in trying to acquire the other star, that they mortgage not only their current but also their future. They have a very, very good roster. As the roster goes right now, this would be the youngest team LeBron James has been on since his rookie season. So athletically, they're far more athletic than 10 teams that he's been on. And the model that LeBron and them created in Miami, because that's when the NBA started playing small ball as far as championship. People have played small ball for a long time, but championship teams didn't. When they moved Chris Bosh to the 5, when he went out and got people like Ray Allen and spot-up shooters, Shane Battier, to be able to spread the court, now Golden State has done that in spades, and Houston has done that in spades with the way they have acquired younger shooters. So I think LeBron understands. I got to be on a team that's a lot younger. Last year, the Cavs are the oldest team in the playoffs. You don't want to be in that position as LeBron ages. So I think that if they give away their top 3 young players and then give away all their draft picks, I think they would be making a mistake compared to those who would argue, well, you're going to waste 1 year in LeBron's prime. Well, it'll be well worth it on the back end. Because I just believe LeBron, like you mentioned, it's like only 2 players we've seen, Kareem and Karl Malone, that when he gets 36, 37, 38, he's going to be able to do it. And I believe that because he hasn't transformed into that post-up player or that just spot-up shooter yet. Those are to come in his career.
We haven't seen any deterioration in his game whatsoever on the offensive end. And we'll see how much if his defense picks up when his offensive workload is not as heavy as it was last year.
And I could argue that even last season, that his playmaking ability was at an all-time high.
Absolutely.
So we haven't seen his game start to, okay, he can't get above the rim. You know something, he's not as athletic to get out on the break.
Which, by the way, we thought we were seeing 4 years ago. Remember,
yes.
He didn't dunk. His first season in Cleveland, pardon me, he stopped dunking. And that led to people saying, well, LeBron's entering what would have made sense, a different phase of his career. And then they were down 3-1 to Golden State, by the way. And people were like, oh, he's going to disappoint the Cavs again. He's not, like, Steph is clearly the best player in the league. And then basically since then, he has reasserted himself. His back got better, most notably. His athleticism returned to not 07, 08 LeBron, but still top 5 athleticism of anybody in the league. And so the only thing that you said that I disagree with is I don't think the Lakers have a great roster right now. They have the potential for an eventual great roster.
Fair. Yes.
Because the guys, the young Lonzo and Ingram and Kuzma aren't there yet. But here is the benefit of what Golden State did and what Golden State is. Whether you add someone this year or not, you're not wasting a year of LeBron's prime. at least in my eyes, because I do not think, even with Kawhi or Lillard or whomever, that this Cavs team, because you're going to have to give up something to get those guys. So it would be, I'm sorry, this Lakers team. I'm going to keep doing that. I apologize. Give me a few days at least.
Yeah.
That this Lakers team is going to be able to compete with a team that was already the most talented team we've already seen, and around midseason is going to add Boogie Cousins. And so I think you can afford a patient approach. If this offseason, just play the make-believe game with me for a moment. Kevin Durant had left and went to Washington. All right, I know they didn't have the cap space, but let's just say he goes somewhere not with LeBron, he leaves. Then I would be pressed. I would say, no, no, no. Like, we have LeBron, we have the best player in the league.
Yeah.
We know he can beat a Steph and Clay Warriors team. Let's go get it now. Because the Warriors raised the bar 2 years ago and then raised their own bar, you can afford a patient approach. That's one of the reasons, by the way, I think the market for Kawhi outside of the Lakers has been somewhat muted. I think Philly's sitting there and saying, man, is this year, even if Kawhi would come play for us?
Yes.
If he's leaving...
Is there a ring to be won?
Is there a ring to be won? If he's leaving anyway, why don't we just make sure we're as well-stocked a year from now, when Clay could leave, when Durant could leave, when our young guys could be better? So I think the Warriors have changed the math on whether or not I would be okay if I were LeBron with being somewhat passive this offseason.
But let's just talk about what the patient approach means. Is it 1 year? Is it 2 years? Could any of these young Lakers turn into all-stars in the next 1 or 2 years? And is that what patience looks like for you? And if the answer is no, then do you bring somebody in?
Well, I think that if there's one player, it's just so many point guards. I would like to say Lonzo Ball in 2 years, but I don't think so. Ingram, it's going to take him 2 years to get his body, and there's so many good wing players in the West. No, I don't look at these guys, not in 2 years. None of those three being all-stars.
But I think it's a great question, because here's the thing. I don't think they have to be. Because if you wait just 1 year, you can bring in the all-star without getting rid of any of them.
Sure.
That's the argument
and
for the patient approach is that you can, if you wait a year, you bring in the all-star, just absorbing him into the cap space. You keep Ingram, you keep Ball, and those guys don't have to immediately become all-stars.
Right, but then the question becomes, does LeBron want to sit and wait a year for that to happen? And how many years does he have where he could just take 1 year to wait? Not waste, but to wait.
Here's what I can tell you. I can tell you that what the Lakers have done thus far this offseason, LeBron is good with all of it. That their plan thus far this offseason is one, and Brian Windhurst, by the way, and Ramona Shelburne did a well-reported article saying the same thing, that he signed, that he was okay. Maybe, I don't know if they gave him the specific names, but
he has approved or
signed off.
Yes, he is involved
with the approach, even if it's not this is Rondo for $9 million, or like that. He knows.
It's been explained to him very clear, and he's like, yeah, I could see that.
And I think that, and I know we're going to talk about this later in the show, I think LeBron is very comfortable with where he is right now in basketball pantheon and where he will end up. And I do not think that he is looking at it as, if we don't do everything we can to this year make the Western Conference Finals, guys like me talk way more about LeBron's legacy than he is pondering it. I think he is as secure as our friend Skip is on where LeBron's legacy is in a negative direction. That's how secure LeBron is right now with where he is and where it will end up. Because you always talk about the totality of the numbers. This is a guy that does not expect to stop playing basketball anytime soon.
No.
And he can do math. He knows where the numbers are going to end up. And so I don't think he feels like we have to win this moment. And it's not a Cleveland situation where he feels like if we don't win, I've lied. Like, you know what I mean? Or I've let the community down as far as what I promised. Obviously, he expects and anticipates wanting to win a championship with the Lakers, but I don't think he feels a ticking clock the way he did when he went back to Cleveland.
No, at 33, though, LeBron has, as a goal, a championship.
Of course.
And he would not go to a team unless they had championship aspirations. He has the luxury of realizing right now this new approach, we can't beat Golden State out shooting them. Why try to keep putting together a team that can outshoot the best shooters we've ever seen? maybe we can be more physical. Maybe we can be more in the half court. Maybe I could be a little more younger on a team where they can be more athletic.
Maybe we can not be 29th in defense, as you pounded on all year long, rightfully so.
It's hard. With that young team, it's hard to impossible to be 26, 27, 28, 29th in defense.
And I think what's important to know is all these moves, whether you like them or not, that the Lakers have made in this early going to free agency, LeBron has had no issue with, has known they were coming,
and they're one-year deals.
And they're all one-year deals.
They have the only player the Lakers have signed to a multi-year extension this offseason is that guy. Right. Everyone else, this time next year, they're not under contract.
All right, we're going to take a break. Coming up, the Kawhi Leonard saga has officially gotten cray-cray. That's next on First Things First. First, we mentioned earlier, LeBron not pressuring the Lakers to get a big star. The biggest star out there, Kawhi Leonard, mired in drama, played just 9 games with the Spurs last season and spent his rehab time in New York, not San Antonio. According to reports, when Spurs staffers tried to visit him in New York, Kawhi's people actively hid him from them, literally brought him to another part of the building. Cris Carter, what was your reaction to this?
I'm surprised it took so long to get out. I had heard about it actually when it happened, and not that surprised. We'll just say, people say, well, I can neither confirm nor deny. But
can I ask you this real quick when you say you're not that surprised? You obviously can't be surprised about this because you knew about it. You just weren't in a position because of how you learned about it to report it on television. Mike Wright reported it at the Spurs. And by the way, when he reported it, he was like, I'm probably not supposed to say this, but Kawhi's not going to be a Spur much longer anyway, and then he said it. Like, that was the preface of it. So I understand why you didn't feel comfortable going with it. But if you hadn't already known this, would that have then surprised you? Because I didn't know this. This was one of the things you hadn't shared with me, and I was like, I mean, this is, to me, like, it did surprise me. If you hadn't known it, would it have surprised you that they were going to these lengths?
Well, it spoke to their not being pleased with San Antonio and also with trying to get out of San Antonio.
Yeah.
Like, if they were trying to smooth over the relationship or trying to come back together or trying to heal the old wounds, then you would see some exchange of, yes, Kawhi's working out here. And because at the beginning of the process, the people in New York were corresponding with San Antonio and the staff. San Antonio was part, and they knew about him being here in New York. But once Kawhi started progressing, they wanted to see, is he on the court? Where is he at? Like, what stages are he at? And Kawhi in his camp, they decided it's not in their best interest to allow them to see that.
Why?
I can't tell you why they did that, but I just think it explains more about where the relationship is. There's some huge advantages to them not knowing where Kawhi is, and Kawhi felt as if the organization did him a disservice anyway as far as the injury. So what they're doing is they're handling the injury on their own, and they're removing the club from their ability to be able to know what stage of the rehab Kawhi is at. That's why Pop said, you need to ask.
No.
He said you need to ask Kawhi's group. They're going to tell us when he's ready.
Pop wasn't lying. Pop didn't know a lot of this stuff. People were asking Pop for information, and I think people thought Pop was being cagey or trying to send a message by saying,
now we know why.
Ask his group. And it was because there was, oddly enough, the team that knew, theoretically, the team doctor that knew the most about Kawhi's situation is the Sixers team doctor, because in some weird way it works. That's the doctor Kawhi got the second opinion from. The fact that he works for another team, it's not a conflict of interest, I guess, because he has the Hippocratic Oath and the reasons he can't share Kawhi's information with anyone other than Kawhi and his representatives. But the Spurs were in the dark on this. You ask why. I don't know this for certain, but logically, I would say it's a power move. It's a power play and a power move. It is, listen, Kawhi has, throughout this process, exerted maximum leverage. Not a toe in the water, not a Le'Veon Bell, I'm not showing up until week 1. Kawhi has exerted maximum leverage.
He played 9 games last year. Whether it was because he was hurt or not, he played 9 games.
Well, no, he was hurt.
We know.
Okay, so yes, he was hurt, but whether he was well enough to try to come back or not come back, it ended up being
He was not well enough.
So you know that.
I know that.
Okay, so you know that his level of health was to where even by the end of the season,
if he was healthy, he would have been there.
Okay,
I kept saying that during the season.
Right. Fair enough. And so, but even now that we now have, I know you now have more information today than you did 2 months ago, even if you had this then, you know that at no point during the season, once he left after those 9 games, was he healthy enough to play.
No.
But you do believe he will be healthy enough to play at the beginning of the year?
Yes. Well, yeah, even trade for him. Yes.
Okay.
They couldn't demand a trade, especially as specific and as strong as they've been, if Kawhi was hurt. Just think logically. Because you know you got to pass the physical. So even if you're saying, hey, listen, Pop, RC, I want y'all to trade me to the Lakers. Well, okay, we trade you. We give you what you want. You going to be able to pass the physical? Do you think Kawhi and his management team would be grandstanding and saying, you know something, man, we're out of here no matter what, and he's still hurt? That would be stupid.
No, I agreed with that part.
Because he's already severed the relationship with San Antonio. No. You don't want to go back to San Antonio.
See, I don't think people doubt that Kawhi is currently healthy. I think the question is, was he healthy enough earlier to where he could have played this season, or was that part of him exerting maximum leverage? You're saying, and you're as, I think, of everyone covering this story, as connected as anyone I know, if not more connected, you're saying that's not the case. That sometime between the end of the season and now, he has become fully recovered.
But we think that because it has been released, or his people have released, or whoever it was, that he'd be willing to sit out this year, even if he's healthy. So the assumption is maybe he sat out part of last year, even if he was healthy. But now you're saying he wasn't
saying that's
healthy.
Not, and he's not what was not reported is that. Let me rephrase. What is being reported is that threatening to sit out. You wouldn't call, according to Kawhi and his people, I was hurt. That's not sitting out. That's missing time due to injury.
Right.
From 10,000 feet, though, where we're at with Kawhi Leonard is here, and I think you'll agree. He had built up an enormous amount of equity and goodwill with not only the Spurs, but with just the league and with fans, with how we viewed him. He has, I think intentionally, because he had to, spent almost all of it. So wherever he goes next, it's almost like you draft like Luka Doncic. I don't know, good, bad, or indifferent about Luka Doncic off the court. It's a blank slate. Wherever Kawhi goes next, if he goes back to being the Kawhi we've always known, he'll rebuild that. If there's more stuff like this, people are going to start to wonder, wait, have I always misdiagnosed, so to speak, who he is?
One thing people are missing is that Kawhi's not happy with how San Antonio does things. All right? They run things a lot like New England. So there's a lot of control. The workout, it was about control. All right? We know you. We own your rights. We want to see you, and we have the right to be able to see you. Now, Kawhi is trying to break free from that control from San Antonio. So he had to not let them see that workout because he's trying to break free. They want every player to do exactly what they say, and Kawhi's like, listen, I don't mind doing what you guys want, but explain it to me. Please explain it to me.
All right, we got to take a break. Coming up, we're going to break down a day of World Cup action with Alexi Lalas. Great slate of games today. That is next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First, time for stories to start your morning, brought to you by Ace, the helpful place. Rockets power forward Clint Capella might bet on himself this offseason and take his qualifying offer. This would make him a free agent in 2019. Nick, would this be a good move for Clint Capella?
Very risky move, and a move you see guys typically not do because the restricted free agency market's usually good enough that they can get nearly what they'd get as an unrestricted guy, but with the security of it. We saw Nerlens Noel do this, and it's ended disastrously for him. Now, the market is so soft this year, and it's going to be potentially so bold next year, he might do it, but I would imagine he and the Rockets get a deal done this offseason.
Yeah, it's unfortunate how the draft worked out because if Phoenix doesn't have the big guy available, he might be having a max contract now. I believe he's a lot better player than Nerlens Noel.
Oh, absolutely.
So I believe this is a risk that you have to take. He's young enough, and he's playing with the type of team that he can get a deal there or hit the market next year.
All right, moving on to everyone's favorite teammate, Dwight Howard. She said somewhat sarcastically. He says he's trying to change his reputation as he joins the Wizards on a one-year deal. Nick is already shaking his head. CC, any chance this happens?
Man, it's hard. It's hard for a guy like this, especially it's harder when you're hungry. I mean, it's harder when you're not as hungry, but Dwight's rich. Like, at this point, why would he change?
Really rich.
I mean, like, why would he change? Now, I do like the message point, But when you get to the point where Dwight is, I need to watch and see. I'm going to watch him closely because I'm going to give him a chance because if he changes, he'd have to change me.
Listen.
Because I'm not a big fan of Dwight Howard.
I think, you know this, I think Dwight, people have underrated how good he was at his peak, how good of a career he's had. But he is who he is. And if he's going to drastically change what type of teammate he is in year 15, he's going to be the first professional athlete I'm aware of ever doing that. Some guys remake themselves post-career, but during their career, this late in the career, I've never seen someone totally remake their image.
All right, back to Kawhi Leonard news. Despite reportedly not wanting to go anywhere but Los Angeles, some non-LA teams are trying to get in the mix. However, the Celtics and Sixers have not offered Jaylen Brown or Markelle Fultz in any trade packages. Nick, should either Eastern Conference team go all in for Kawhi?
I don't think they should, and I'm certain they're not going to. The fact that the Celtics won't even offer Jaylen Brown, who's probably their fourth most attractive player or pick asset, speaks to where this market is. Part of that is Kawhi, and the other part of that is, as I said at the top of the show, if you think he's a rental, and you think Golden State's already won the title this year, the hell you renting him for? So, like, for all those reasons, the Kawhi Leonard market's going to be a softer market than a lot of people expected.
Yeah, you can see that Boston and Philadelphia, they're really not serious about landing Kawhi because they would have these guys involved in those trade talks. But it's also Kawhi and them dropping the hammer saying they want to be traded to Los Angeles. That's the reason why Jaylen Brown and Fultz, why they're not included in these trade talks, because they know the rental piece is not good.
All right, finally, to the NFL, Tyrod Taylor is entering the Browns offseason as the starter, while #1 overall pick Baker Mayfield waits in the wings. Wide receiver Jarvis Landry says that Baker Mayfield can learn a lot from Tyrod. CC, break that down. What specifically can Tyrod teach Baker?
Well, there's so many things that they're not familiar with as far as how the plays come into the transmitter that's in their helmet. That's not something that they have in college football. A lot of the plays are called on the sidelines with some type of identification, cards, and whatnot. The audible system. Where do your blitz come from? When you get in certain type of protections, what are you vulnerable with? How to get rid of the football? How to avoid taking those big shots, because both of them are undersized and height challenged. So, yes, there's certain windows that guys like him, Russell Wilson, them, they can't see what Tom Brady can see. They can't see what Eli Manning. The game they play is different. So explaining that to Baker, all those things are tremendous little tips and keys to be able to help a young guy. So these guys, when you come into mini camps and OTAs, you're playing football, but it's a game that's foreign to you. You're like, man, I've been playing this game since I was 8. But this pro football, the speed of the big people, it's overwhelming. The complexity of the offense and defenses, it's overwhelming. And the lack of what you don't know from a communication standpoint, it's eased by having a veteran like Tyrod there for you.
And this is one of the reasons among many that you hated the idea that I floated, which was the Browns taking 2 quarterbacks to make sure they got the right quarterback somehow, because then you don't have.
Well, yeah, let's just work through it now.
Right.
Where
Who's
would
teaching
you be?
who? Right. The parts about the game that I'm not really considering. Right.
Yeah, that's like going to one of those big tests at Ohio State. There's 500 people in the room, and I know the guy. He's down the hallway from me. He's not a real bright guy. I'm going to sit next to him. Like, why am I going to sit next to him? I'm going to sit next to some geek nerd like you. Nick Wright, Cris Carter. What up, bro?
That's why we're great partners.
There's an opportunity for CC to tell it like it is. He generally does.
Well
so
done.
Thank you for that. All right, time now for your World Cup Wake Up. The quarterfinals kick off right after us on FS1. First, Mbappe and France take on Luis Suarez and Uruguay in the early matchup. And then in the afternoon, oh, it's a good one, Neymar looks to lead Brazil against Belgium, fresh off their dramatic win over Japan. That's all right here on FS1 right after the show. And who better to break it all down than friend of the FS1 and World Cup studio analyst Alexi Lalas. Alexi, thank you so much for joining us.
Greetings from Moscow. How we doing?
We are great getting to watch it. You have far more of a first-hand look at what's happening. Let's start with a quick overview. 8 games left in the World Cup. How exciting has the World Cup been for you heading into the quarters?
I've covered a lot of these, and I've been around a lot of them. This is the greatest World Cup that I have seen for drama, for excitement, for goals, for players, for surprises. On and off the field, this World Cup has continued to deliver day after day after day. And for the millions of people that are waking up in the United States each and every day and watching this tournament, I think that they would agree with me. Whether you're into soccer, you're not into soccer, you recognize the theater and the drama. You're into all the stories of the players. You're into the stories of these teams. You want to see those surprises that happen each and every day. And who knows, we might have some more in the next couple of days.
All right, let's talk about the early game. France is actually the biggest betting favorite of any team this round, which surprised me given what's going on the other side of the bracket. It probably has something to do with Uruguay's injuries, but also how good France has looked and this 19-year-old kid, Mbappe. Like, what do you expect to see in that game and Mbappe's ability to really assert himself as one of the upcoming great players in this sport?
Yeah, so Kylian Mbappe, the 19-year-old from France, has taken this tournament by storm. It's not as if people hadn't heard of him, but when you do it on the world stage, obviously you're doing it in front of the world. And the fact that he is so young makes it must-see. He is worth the price of admission. His quickness off the mark, his ability that is beyond his years, his speed when he gets out on the gallop, his ability one-on-one, and ultimately his ability to put the ball in the back of the net makes this something that you want to see. We talk about LeBron. We talk about Tiger. We talk about, I don't know, Kobe. We talk about Wayne Gretzky. When they burst on the scene, everybody had a collective, ooh, wow. Well, that's what's happening right here with this France team and Kylian Mbappe, 19 years old. Now, it's not going to be easy because they are coming up against the best defense in this tournament that is specialized on shutting down people and keeping people from score. So the simple narrative is that you got a great defensive team and you got a great attacking team. When you come up against each other, what happens? Conventional wisdom says that defense wins championships, but I'll tell you what, this team with Mbappe and Pogba and Griezmann, from an attacking perspective, they might just say, fine, we'll let in goals, but we're just going to score one more than you.
Lexi, I hate to do it to you, but you mentioned some of the great players, athletes that we love to watch. LeBron, Kobe. The United States is not participating in this World Cup. Lexi, when does the United States get an athlete on the field that resembles Mbappe? France has one. We got more people in the United States. I'm sure there's more athletes working. When will we get an athlete on the pitch for the USA?
Well, we could have had one already. And just by where you're born, sometimes it doesn't work out. So, for example, a player who's playing on the French team may have more opportunities, and maybe in terms of the way he's perceived throughout his youth and then given opportunities, might be put up on a pedestal. And that's not to take anything away from what Mbappe has done. But if you are playing and growing up in the United States as an American player, I would submit to you that it's more difficult to achieve that status than it is for if you're coming up for a team like France, which has won a World Cup, which has an incredible league, which has incredible history of players, and certainly has an incredible array of talent surrounding Mbappe. So, for example, if Mbappe was playing on Panama, which came to this tournament for the first time and didn't do well, but they celebrate going to it, it would be a very different proposition. So, like in any sport that's a team sport, you have the stars, but if you don't surround that star with equal, well, not equal, but almost equal amounts of quality and depth, then that star is going to suffer.
All right, Alexi, let's move on to the later game, Brazil and Belgium. Love these two teams playing, going up against each other. Brazil is still the overwhelming favorite. Belgium is playing fantastic soccer so far. What are you expecting from this game today?
I expect for the first time this tournament, Belgium is going to come up against somebody not just equal to them, but better than them. And they are really this is, I think, a seminal moment. There's going to be a seminal moment for this generation of players if they are able to, from a Belgian perspective, if they are able to get past Brazil. But make no mistake, this Brazil team is flying. We talk so much about their attack with Neymar and Coutinho and these types of players. But this defense right now, they have a solid attack. They have a solid defense. I think they're feeling it right now. I don't think that they fear Belgium in any way. They're going to come up against a very good player in Romelu Lukaku up top, Kevin De Bruyne in that midfield right now. But I think it would, if I had to pick someone right now, it's still Brazil, because I think they are balanced from top to bottom, and I think that they are just feeling it right now. Whether it's Neymar or any of these other players, I think they smell a World Cup within their grasp. And even though Belgium is coming in with a lot of talent, talent and this incredible generation that they have, I don't think that they are scared of Belgium right now.
All right, you mentioned all this talent on Belgium, and if anyone that wakes up early on the weekend to watch the Premier League, it's so many of these guys on Belgium, those are the stars of the Premier League. Yet, when I check their World Cup, what they've done in the World Cup, in the last 2 tournaments leading up to this one, you wonder, all right, did they just get these players this year? Like, this is a team that I think it's fair to say is underachieved on the world stage over the last couple tournaments. With what they've done now and the draw they've gotten, if they can't win tonight, how would you evaluate what they've done?
I would evaluate it as a golden generation that teased us but never paid us off, ultimately, because there's undeniable talent, as you mentioned, and plenty of talent that stars with their clubs, and many also, as you mentioned, that star with their clubs in England. But putting all that talent together, Roberto Martinez, that's his job. And if he were to be able to get this golden generation to live up to that potential and get them to the promised land, you know, he would be king. But others have tried, and I do think that at this point, if this golden generation isn't able to get past this game and obviously get into, at the very least, a World Cup final, they will have let themselves down and they will have let the world down because of the expectations that we have. But as I said, they're facing a very, very good Brazil team, which makes it that much more impressive if they were to go forward by beating Brazil.
England taking on Sweden in Saturday's match. Can you give us a breakdown? How do you recover from the huge win that England has to be able to keep that momentum going in a tournament that we have seen through the years where PKs, they haven't been very, very successful? I saw the fans cheering. Was that their World Cup to win over Colombia?
Yeah, to a certain extent, England has already won because they have broken this curse. And this was an incredible weight lifted off of England. They could certainly go out and lose to Sweden. They could certainly go out and lose to Sweden in penalties. And I still think that this team and Gareth Southgate, the coach, are going to return as conquering heroes. It's not that they want to, but you mentioned in a tournament situation, you have to be able to balance your emotions. So coming off of that incredible win, in particular in penalties, that was wonderful. So how do you harness that positive feeling and go into a team, face a team like Sweden that is very simple, that understands exactly who they are, who they aren't. They don't fear England. They've played England many, many times. Many of them play in England. These types of players that will not be scared of this England team. I was happy the other night. I don't know about you guys, but I was surrounded by a lot of different people I work with and have friends and colleagues that are English. I give them a lot of crap a lot of time, and they give it right back to me because it's kind of fun. But ultimately, I was really happy to see the joy and to see them be unburdened of what I said was just this incredible albatross around them for so long. It was fun to see them celebrate and to be optimistic. And they have an opportunity, a real opportunity, being on that right side of the bracket that you have to admit is certainly weaker. And they have a pathway to get to the World Cup final, which is something that a lot of times, and certainly 3 weeks ago, I'm not sure there were a lot of England fans that thought this was going to happen.
Lexi, I have to ask you before we let you go. You said this is some of the best soccer you've seen, besides the soccer and the up-and-coming stars and the new names and just incredible play. Have you ever seen such incredible flopping ever in World Cup play? Because if there's one thing Americans have taken away, besides fantastic soccer, is nobody, ow, I'm out. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It's actually brilliant. It's been brilliant.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, so look, the diving aspect of soccer is nothing new. In every World Cup, it comes up, especially for people that maybe don't watch a lot of soccer, and they associate diving with soccer. I will say this. One of the things that the World Cup does is put on full display the different ways that we think about the game, the different values that we have, the different ways that we think about what appropriate behavior is and honorable behavior is on the field. And just because we see something as cheating doesn't mean that other countries and cultures see it as cheating. There are certainly countries and cultures out there that don't see diving as cheating. They see it as a necessity. They see it as a skill. They see it as an art. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to, and it also doesn't mean that we stop ridiculing when Neymar flops and goes around and around and around. But I think that one of the things the World Cup does, at least has done for me over the years, is give me an appreciation and an understanding that while we all have this game that is ours and this beautiful game, we all see it differently. How we see it, how we play it, how we broadcast it, how the media covers it. It's all different in these different languages and cultures and countries. And so go ahead, have at it when it comes to Neymar diving and call him every name in the book. But just know that there's plenty of other people that will defend it and recognize it as an art and a skill. If you can wrap your mind around that, that's fine. If you can't, that's okay too. It gives us plenty to talk about.
You know who won't do that? Probably Belgium. Belgium will not recognize it today. Such great insight, such wonderful stuff. Alexi, thank you so much as always. World Cup coverage kicks off at 9 right after us on FS1. Much more First Things First right after this. They say that sometimes what you do is who you are. Utah rookie and Duke alum Grayson Allen might disagree. Grayson got into his first NBA altercation last night in a summer league game. His opponent, fellow rookie Atlanta Hawk Trae Young. The two got tangled, both assessed technical fouls. Grayson Allen, if you'll recall, has a reputation for being, let's call it, aggressive during games. Nick, who's at fault for this scuffle last night?
I mean, there's no question whatsoever. Grayson, yes, theoretically, Trae Young, after Grayson Allen puts the entire weight of his body after hooking him on his shooting arm, he could have walked away instead of pushing Grayson Allen away. But Grayson then did what, of course, he does, which is escalate and then throw his hands up. Like, wait, me? You're mad at me? Let me hook the guy. Let me lean on the guy. Then when the guy pushes me away, let me throw my shoulder into his midsection. Then me? You're mad at me? Is little old me? Listen, I lost a bet because I set the over-under on 2.5 regular season games before Grayson Allen did some of this nonsense. He didn't even make it 2 summer league games before he got into this nonsense. Listen, Grayson not playing very well, as a lot of the young guys in summer league. We're all focused on Trae Young, who's had a poor shooting percentage in summer league. Grayson shooting 20% in summer league. It'd been tough. It's tough for all these young guys, except for big men, essentially, in summer league. And he went back to what he knows best. I mean, it doesn't surprise me.
No. You can't be surprised. And to your comments, Jenna, you are what you do. Basketball is not a game that you have to transform yourself because of this physical competition that you have to do before the game. Now, the NFL, let me tell you something. The guy who walks across the chalk and the white lines, and compared to the guy who might pick up his
kids after
his kids or a significant other after the game, those are 2 different cats. You have to do that in the NFL. In the
Famously,
NBA,
John Henderson having guys slap him before the game so he could just get mentally ready. Different game.
Yeah, absolutely. Basketball is not that game, but Grayson Allen, we will continue to see him involved in things like this because this is who he is. This is no Duke thing. Don't blame it on Duke. Don't blame it on the Coach K.
How is that going to be received as you go through the season? Is this the kind of thing where we talked about this with Lonzo Ball? You come in with any other storyline other than playing basketball and you're going to get targeted for it. Is this the kind of thing he would get targeted for?
Listen, I think the Lonzo thing was different because I think some guys almost kind of felt bad that he had to have this distraction of his dad. And yeah, guys knew that there was going to be more eyeballs on those games, so they might have really tried to up their game. But people didn't have a grudge against Lonzo. I said it before, I'll say it again. You ask any veteran NBA player, name 5 guys from the incoming class. Most know the #1 pick. They probably know Bagley. Some of them might know Doncic. All of them know Trae Young because he was a big story. All of them know him. And all the other guys I mentioned, top 5 picks. All of them know who this guy is, what his rep is, and you said it exactly right from the way you set it up. You are what you do. In this world. You are not what you say you are. You are not what you aspire to be. You are what you do. Your actions define you.
And when you've had multiple reactions like you, the benefit of the doubt is gone. Like I can't. The first altercation, yes, this is who he's going to be. He was an edgy player in college. He will be an edgy player in the pros. But how will other veteran players react? It's not fair to have him in the same conversation as Lonzo Ball just because Lonzo Ball had a lot of eyeballs and optics on him. We saw LeBron James whisper something in Lonzo's ear, muffled his mouth so that people couldn't see. I don't see LeBron James doing that for him. All right, and the reason why, because a lot of these things that Grayson does, you can get hurt on the basketball court. He could have hurt Trey's shoulder on that play. That's why he put his dead weight on him compared to falling back off him. It's the same thing that Kelly Olynyk did to Kevin Love. When he held his elbow,
and then he ripped.
Yeah, and then he pulled it, which led to Kevin Love having an injury.
Yeah, Kevin Love missed an NBA Finals, dislocated shoulder. LeBron's first year with the Cavs. Listen, and I'll go to the third rail here briefly because it's honestly how I feel, and I think it's a lot part of it. Great that we talk a lot about privilege in this country. Man, Grayson Allen, if he didn't look like Grayson Allen, would be called a thug up and down every television network from the day he left Duke. Or the day before he left Duke, pardon me. From the first time he started tripping guys, he shoved an assistant coach in college, a coach. He had breakdowns on the sideline. He's been in the league 10 minutes. And listen, I mean, it's going to take 2 months of him acting right for the redemption story to begin, because that's how this always happens. That's why I caught a lot of flack from people, because I was honest during the NCAA tournament. And if you guys remember, he had a buzzer beater attempt to go to the Final Four. And I told the public, listen, you can judge me for this if you want, but I was, even though I had bet on Duke in that game, in my heart, in the moment, I was rooting against that shot going in, because I knew how the story would be written, that Grayson Allen has overcome so much adversity. It ain't adversity if you do it to yourself. If you walk down the street and you get shot and you learn to walk again, that's an amazing story. If you shoot yourself and you recover from that, that's not overcoming adversity. That is overcoming self-inflicted wounds. He doesn't have to be this way.
And the fans in Utah, they're going to be put in a really odd situation. They play great basketball in Utah. They have since Jerry Sloan took over that program. They have basketball that's respected. They play well on the offensive end. They play fundamental defense. And their fans, the product that they put out there, their fans have appreciated that. They have one of the huge home court advantages. People talk about, where don't you want to go during the regular season? Man, I don't want to go to Utah. Don't want to play no back-to-back. Don't want to go to Utah because of the brand of basketball. And I can understand what you're saying about Grayson and being in the tournament and as far as Duke. I like watching Utah for the style for which they play. I really like watching Donovan Mitchell, who was at the game last night. I'm not going to stop watching Utah because in this game, you cheer for jerseys and you cheer for brands that have names.
Right.
And I'll be watching Donovan Mitchell, cheering for him. I won't be cheering for Grayson Allen because it's not a brand of basketball that I enjoy seeing.
So some would say that, or if there is the argument that he's trying to sort of beef up his reputation of being a tough guy or overcome whatever it is that he's not able to do on the court. He's a good basketball player. He doesn't need to do it.
He's a phenomenal athlete. And, listen, by NBA standards, he's not an all-star caliber, obviously right now, but he doesn't project out to be an all-star caliber player, but it does project out to have a long rotation career. That's if you believe the college projections, if you remove this stuff. But I'm going to say one other thing about college and one of the patron saints of college basketball. If he can't get himself under control, you are going to start to wonder, fairly, whether or not Coach K did him a service or a disservice by enabling all of this. His whole time at Duke, remember he got suspended the one game, or indefinitely, but it was the one game. If he can't control himself in Summer League against one of the few guys he has a physical advantage over in Trae Young that he's going to play, how's he going to deal with a big 7-year NBA veteran backing him down in the post? How's he going to deal with the things he's going to have to deal with each and every night? I don't know the answer to that.
One thing I tell you guys all the time, you can't control your athletic ability, but you can control what kind of teammate you're going to be. And that right there is just a little snapshot of what we're going to see with him in Utah, and as long as he's in the NBA.
All right, we're going to take a break. Coming up, how much pressure is on Russ and Paul George this season? That's next. First things first. Welcome back to First Things First. We're now joined by Yahoo NBA insider Jordan Schultz. Jordan, thanks for being with us. I learned a lot about you in that commercial break. You hoop. You're a baller. You like basketball.
I know him back from my Kansas City radio days.
Nice.
A long time, so it's good to see you, Jordan.
Great to see you, too.
Good. Welcome to First Things First.
All right, let's go. Let's talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder. We got ourselves a good news, bad news situation. Good news, Paul George re-signed for another 4 years, giving Russell Westbrook a Thunder buddy in the Western Conference. Bad news, the roster will cost over $300 million. That's practically a fake number. Jordan, start with you. Give us some insight into this situation. Why did Paul George decide to stay in Oklahoma City? I think it surprised a lot of people who thought for sure he was going to the Lakers.
Well, the most interesting part for me with Paul George is that when OKC traded for him, they didn't necessarily talk to Paul George. They didn't talk to his camp. They didn't talk to Aaron Mitch's agent. They bet on their culture and the fact that they could essentially recruit him every day in their building. And that's what they did. So every day they recruited him. They built the culture because he wanted to be a Laker. He's from L.A.
Sure.
Was not recruited by the big schools. Goes to Fresno State. But bottom line is now they have him in their door every day, and that made a big difference. He was able to build a rapport with Russell Westbrook. And throughout this kind of working out every day, they started to say, okay, this could work. And that's what happened. And to me, it was a surprise because I think the biggest thought process was they're going to get PG, the Lakers are, then they're going to get LeBron, then they're going to contend. Didn't happen like that.
So in your eyes, what did this say about Russ? Because there was a narrative around Russ once Kevin Durant left. That decision became as much about Russ as it was about KD to a lot of people. That this was because KD doesn't want to play with him. In fact, nobody wants to play with Russ. Look at Oladipo. He goes to Indiana, and he flourishes without Russ. What did it say to you about Russ and what a guy like Paul George thinks of him and thinks of playing with him?
There is a perception around the league with Russell that you can't win with him. You can't play with him among certain players. For Paul George, a legitimate top 15 at worst NBA player, to say, I want to be with Russell Westbrook in the prime of my career to try to win a championship, that said a lot to me. It also said a lot about Oklahoma City as a franchise, the fan base, the Thunder, Sam Presti, buying into everything. But I think it helped Russell Westbrook in the sense that I don't know if every superstar would have chosen to stay, but for Paul George to stay, it's a big deal.
There's a number of different ways to win in the NBA. Typically, it's either on the court, either you're winning championships or your team's in contention, which brings great value to your fan base and also great value to the franchise as a whole. There's another thing, how you manage the salary cap, how many fans you have, how many boxes you have. Are you winning at the box office as far as the owner going to win? You mentioned, Jenna, $300 million. I mean, how much did he pay for the franchise? Now,
300, yes.
Regardless, with having Paul George now, is there a winning formula for them as a business?
As a business?
As a business. I know they're not going to win championships with these two, all right? So that right there is not going to happen. They're not going to be able to win at the box office because now the exorbitant salaries and the luxury tax that they're going to pay, is it really worth it?
To me, the first thing you have to do is try and buy out Carmelo Anthony before you do anything else. Because if you buy him out and you stretch the vet minimum, which is $2.4 million, you save $116 million in luxury tax. To answer your question, long-winded, no, it's not worth it.
Okay.
Because they're not going to contend. Because in the second round, it's either Houston or Golden State. And they're not better than those teams.
But here's the thing. Here's the pushback I'll give you on that. And the point on Carmelo is very important. People might say, is Carmelo making $116 million? The luxury tax is complicated. At some point, you pay 3 or 4 cents on or 3 or 4x, whatever you're
on the dollar.
over the cap. So just trust us on this, that you could save over $100 million stretching him. They have the other player they could potentially stretch. Is it Abrinas? There's Kyle Singler, I think it is. Whomever it is. There's other ways they can bring that luxury tax payment down. But the reason I reject the idea flatly that this team can't contend is they can't contend this year. But Russ is signed long-term and Paul George is signed long-term. And if we're talking about, is Klay Thompson going to want to go to Golden State or to the Lakers? Yeah. Is KD going to want to say I'm going to go do this on my own? If the NBA ever gets back to what it had been always pre-KD joining Golden State, then a Russ plus Paul George with the right lineup around you is the type of team that's contended. A top 5 guy, fringe in Russ's case, plus another all-star, that's the type of team that is typically contended for championships. So now, maybe you think that doesn't matter who's with Russ. Russ is just the type of player you can't win with. I can't say that. I think that we also can't assume that Russ is going to be the one superstar that doesn't improve at all. I don't think he's going to change how he plays, but how efficient he is. Could he become a slightly better three-point shooter? Sure, why not? Like LeBron became a better three-point shooter. Paul George became a better three-point shooter.
But LeBron was committed to doing just that. Paul George committed to shooting open shots, contested shots better. What is Russ going to be committed to?
Yeah, and I would make the argument that Russell Westbrook, as great as he is, he hasn't changed his game at all. And he's a great player. I mean, he's a great player. But his game has not changed. It's downhill. It's get to the cup. It's aggressive. And that works for him. But it doesn't like Paul George statistically did not have a great year last year. His numbers were down a little bit. You know, Steven Adams, he's making $25 million a year, something like that. So they don't really have the roster flexibility to get a lot better. They re-up with Jeremy Grant, $27 million. But bottom line is, you're betting on Paul George and Russell Westbrook being able to maybe recruit one more free agent long term. But those are your two guys, and I don't know if they can win.
So let me ask you about that. Is it going to be about them recruiting? Like, I'm very curious what you said before. Tell me how Sam Presti laid out this incredible sort of platform whereby Paul George wanted to stay there and not go home, where he said he wanted to play, in the town where he grew up.
Or even go to Philly, which could compete right
whatever
now.
it was. Tell me what Sam Presti did when you said he made this a culture where you wanted to stay and play, because that's the way you're going to bring other guys in.
Well, it's player to,
Yeah, he didn't change it when Paul got there and said, you know something, guy, we're going to do bam, bam, bam. No, he said what we do on a daily basis. When he gets here, he's going to figure out, you know something? How the team flies, the type of meal options that they have, the type of hotels that they stay in, the culture in that city, that fan base, those things which he thought, you know something, it's just like this show. He's never been here, but man, we believe we're better than the other shows. And you know when he's going to see that? When Jordan gets here, because we're going to win him over by the way we attack the subjects and go about things on a daily basis. I believe that to be the same thing that OKC was doing for Paul George.
Yeah, and also the player development, I think they feel like...
I develop good players. She's better now with her left. This dude right here.
I'm better now, Jordan, than I was 10 minutes ago. Go on.
Absolutely. Well, and they also believe that Andre Roberson's going to play a big role when he comes back. I think that's a big thing for them. But like CeCe said, it's about getting you in the building, selling you every day on your culture, and understanding that we're better than other teams in the sense of how we handle our own.
And just one quick note for the audience. I just want people to understand what luxury tax is. It is billionaires paying other billionaires. Do you know where the luxury tax payment goes? To the teams that don't pay the tax. So no fan should ever care about their team being in the luxury tax. You should care about cap flexibility, things like this. But no fan should ever actually care, oh man, my Clay Bennett.
Fans should never think that there is not some repercussion to just going out and acquiring other salaries. When you mention a number like Jenna mentions, and we live in New York City, they live in Oklahoma, bro. And you mentioned $300 million. We need to explain to the fans what is really going on.
For sure, it's a record. It
the
breaks
first $500 million team in terms of payroll and tax.
Right, and no doubt about it. The point that I'm making is like the owner, he signed up for it. He got a bargain on buying the team, and he still to this day realizes, man, I chose to be cheap on $4.5 million to keep James Harden. My team's never been the ripple effect of that, and so now he's paying the price for it.
You know what? I know to me, that's the most fascinating part of this whole thing. They went cheap on James Harden, and now they've gone completely in the other direction to say, we're going all in, baby. And you know, it's fascinating.
How did we do? How's our culture here?
A+. But I was talking to CeCe. I want to get in this hoop league.
Oh,
I heard from Nick he's got a nice little thing going.